like we said, you're on this book tour because of the local honey. So, just talk about what inspired you to write the local honey, and you said it in the 1950s. Why
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that the case?
An interesting decade because there was a lot of transition going on there. So, I mean, I'm have a big interest in history. My books are always, historic in nature, at least everything I've written so far. I kind of like to do an immersion into those time periods. I try to, when somebody asks me about that, I try to compare it to something completely different, and that's think of fantasy books or science fiction books. All of that is about world building. When you have a historic novel, you have a world that's already built, but when you go into it, it seems a lot different than the world we live in today. The descriptions just kind of setting the scene, the background, the cars, the music people are listening to, the food they're eating, things like that. They're just going to be different then. And that sense of immersion, I think, not only gives you information about the historic nature of that time, it just kind of makes you feel like you're escaping into a different time and place. So the 1950s to me was a very pivotal time in America, and especially the early 50s. You had a lot of people who were still recovering from the trauma of the Second World War. Back then all guys were soldiers. It seemed like they all got kind of sucked into it. And then they came home and they came back to an America that everybody thought was going to be the same. But really, as a few years went on, people realized we're going to be far different than it was prior to World War II. So, I mean, you got a decade that came with some really strict social rules and kind of crippling class divisions, et cetera. And even though America was enjoying a new prosperity, that prosperity could not be shared by everyone simply because of those types of separations and that. So the book is serious at times, humorous and touching, but there's always a cloud of desperation and I think like moral ambiguity that hangs over some of the characters because they're trying to survive in such a structured setting. So I'll stop there, but I'm happy to talk more about any part of it as you want.